Matthias was used to getting up early, but that dawn had a different feel. The sun hadn't even shown its face yet when he jumped out of bed. He walked to the kitchen, still half asleep, and started making his strong coffee, as he did every day. The aroma of fresh coffee soon filled the room, mixing with the soft scent of the bread that Monica, his wife, had baked the night before. A little later, Monica appeared, still wrapped in a warm robe. Her footsteps were silent on the cold kitchen floor. She approached her husband and gave him a tender kiss. The soft light from the kitchen illuminated her face with a peaceful expression. "Today I'll pick Ninha up from school, honey," Monica announced with a smile. The couple worked making deliveries to neighboring cities, transporting goods purchased online. They spent the whole day driving and carrying boxes, often heavy. It was not an easy task. It required physical and mental effort, but that was how they ensured the family's livelihood, for themselves and for little Ninha, their daughter. "I have few deliveries today," added Monica. "It's the opposite for me. I still have some things accumulated from yesterday. I don't know if I'll be able to handle them," replied Matthias, already anticipating the long day ahead. As the aroma of coffee spread through the house, the two talked about the day that was beginning. Monica then went to her daughter's room. "My love, it's time to wake up," she said in a soft voice, as she gently shook Ninha, who was snuggled under colorful blankets. The girl opened her eyes slowly, still fighting sleep. Monica carefully picked her up and took her to the bathroom, where she began to bathe the little girl, with gestures full of tenderness and patience. But what no one expected was that the day would begin in such a surprising way. Later, when Matthias went out to deliver, he found a young woman lost on the road, alone in the middle of nowhere. Moved by compassion, he offered her a ride. However, it was only when he took a closer look that he realized, with a shock, that the young woman was pregnant. The unexpected encounter left Matthias intrigued and disturbed, wondering what could have led the girl to be in that situation. Thus, the day that began like any other promised to become an experience that Matthias would never forget. While Monica bathed Ninha, Matthias finished breakfast. With everything ready, the family gathered at the table, as they did every day. Before starting the meal, they said a prayer, giving thanks for the new day and asking for divine protection against any evil that might occur. When they finished eating, Ninha ran excitedly to get her backpack, already packed for the day of school. With a sparkle in her eyes, she asked, "Who am I going with today?" Matthias smiled, hugging his daughter tenderly. "Today you're going with me, my little one. But Mommy will be the one to pick you up from school. Daddy has a lot of work today," he explained. Ninha hugged her mother affectionately before getting into the car with her father. Matthias leaned over to give Monica a kiss, and with a smile on his face, he left. "Take care, love," said Monica, waving as they drove away. A little while later, she also left for work in the family's second car. Ninha's school was almost an hour away, but fortunately it was close to the distribution center where Matthias picked up the packages for deliveries. The first rays of sunlight were beginning to illuminate the car windows, while father and daughter happily sang children's songs, their voices blending with the sound of the engine. Matthias felt immense pleasure in being a father. He had always been very dedicated to everything he did, but since Ninha was born, he had become even more zealous and responsible. He and Monica came from humble families and never had access to the more sophisticated things in life. They dreamed that Ninha would have opportunities that they never had, so they worked hard. With great sacrifice, they managed to buy 2 simple cars, which they used for daily deliveries. Around 6:40 in the morning, Matthias stopped in front of Ninha's school. "Go on, my princess," he encouraged her as the little girl walked through the gate, her hair bouncing with each step. Then he went to the distribution center, where he picked up the orders from the previous day and a new batch of deliveries. The trunk of the car was completely full, as were the back seats and even the passenger seat. And so, another day of work began for that dedicated father. It was an exhausting day. Matthias traveled from one end of the city to the other, making deliveries without stopping. He didn't even have time for lunch, eating a quick snack in the car between deliveries, determined to complete all his tasks on time. It was already 8 p.m. when he completed the last delivery. When he realized that all the orders for the day had been delivered, he felt a momentary relief. Now all I have to do is get on the road home. He muttered to himself, not imagining that the day still had in store a surprise that would change his life forever. Before hitting the road, he called Monica, who was already at home with the ninja. "I'm preparing that lasagna you like so much," she said, her sweet and reassuring voice sounding on the other end of the line. Matthias smiled, feeling his tiredness subside for a moment. He got back into his car, now empty, started the engine, and put on some soft music to relax. However, as he approached the exit of the city, he noticed an unusual traffic jam. What could be happening, he thought, frowning as he tried to see ahead through the windshield. It was then that he saw a police car passing by on the shoulder of the road, with its sirens on. As he got closer, he realized that an accident had occurred. Tension took over his chest, as he felt that something unexpected was about to happen, something that could change his life forever. After a collision between two semi-trucks, the road had been completely blocked, causing a huge traffic jam. Matthias, stuck in the traffic jam, watched the situation worsen by the minute. He knew that there was no hope of traffic returning to normal anytime soon, and that if he continued on his usual route, it could take hours to reach his destination. Determined to find a solution, he decided to look for an alternative route. He knew of a dirt road nearby, which ran through a wooded area that he had driven through a few times before. Luckily, Matthias' car was positioned so that he could maneuver it onto the shoulder, allowing him to drive onto the dirt track. "I can't wait for this to be resolved," he exclaimed as he turned the steering wheel and prepared to take the alternative route. Although he didn't like driving on that road, as it was poorly lit and without any signs, he recognized that he had no other option. As soon as he turned onto the track, the vehicle's high beams cut through the darkness of the woods. The dirt road wound through the forest, narrow and uneven, while the trees formed a dense green canopy over the path. The ground, still damp from the recent rain, was covered in a layer of dry leaves that crunched under the tires. The bright beam of Matthias's headlights revealed a wild and almost mystical landscape, with the shadows of the trees and bushes moving slightly in the wind. He advanced cautiously, feeling a growing unease. The silence of the forest was broken only by the roar of the engine and the distant song of some nocturnal birds. As he continued along the deserted road, Matthias realized that no one else had chosen this route. He began to wonder if he had really made the right choice. "My God, I've never driven here at night," he muttered, feeling a twinge of worry. "Shouldn't I have waited for the police to clear the road?" he thought, somewhat anxiously. Suddenly, something in the darkness caught his attention. A small, indefinable figure appeared at the side of the road. Matthias squinted, trying to get a better look. It was the silhouette of a little girl, apparently about 10 years old, standing motionless. His heart raced, and he braked abruptly, causing the car to slide slightly on the sandy terrain. Hearing the sound of the brakes, the girl took a hesitant step toward the woods, clearly scared. Not knowing what to do, Matthias rolled down the car window. With a calm and comforting voice, he tried to calm the situation. "Hey, you don't have to be afraid of me. I'm not going to hurt you, it's okay." The little girl, with big, scared eyes, stared at him, without moving. Matthias continued, "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" The girl shook her head slowly, confirming that she was lost, but remained silent about her parents. Matthias looked around, trying to see if there was anyone hiding in the bushes. Seeing that the girl was truly alone, he turned his attention to her and said, "I can give you a ride to the end of the woods. We can find your parents or take you to a safe place. Do you live nearby?" The girl nodded, but remained still wary of approaching the car. Trying to convey confidence, Matthias picked up a toy he had in the back seat, a small doll he had intended to give his daughter as a gift. He held it up in front of the girl, and the little girl smiled slightly, her eyes fixed on the doll. Finally, she gathered the courage to take a step toward Matthias's car, showing a little more confidence as she moved forward, albeit hesitantly. At that moment, Monica's husband, Matthias, noticed something that made him freeze immediately. He noticed that the little girl's belly was visibly swollen, much more than expected for a child her age. His heart raced with a mixture of worry and bewilderment. He tried to hide his shock, forcing a smile as he waited for the girl to get into the car. Could she be pregnant? No, that can't be, he thought, feeling paralyzed by this disturbing possibility. While Matthias struggled to process this idea, the little girl finally gathered her courage and got into the car. She settled into the front seat, curled up and visibly nervous. Sensing her fear, Matthias quickly composed himself and, in the softest voice he could manage, said, "Don't worry, you're safe now. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to help you find your parents." He smiled kindly and handed her the doll he had picked up earlier, trying to convey some comfort before starting the car again. However, before continuing, Matthias felt the need to warn Monica about what was happening. He took out his cell phone, but when he looked at the screen, he saw that there was no signal. The road in the middle of the forest was completely isolated, with no network coverage, which explained why so few people ventured out there. Matthias sighed, putting his cell phone away, trying to hide the growing concern he felt. He started the car and, as he slowly drove along the dirt road, tried to find out more about who the girl who was now sitting next to him was. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Mine is Matthias," he asked gently, hoping to break the ice. The little girl, who until then had not said a single word, finally answered. "It's Rita. My name is Rita, sir." The conversation began to flow with difficulty. "Rita, do you remember how you ended up here?" he asked, casting a quick glance at the girl's belly, still intrigued by what he had seen. Rita shook her head and answered in a weak voice. "No, sir. I don't know. I don't remember." Matthias tried to find out more, asking if she knew where she lived or her parents' phone number, but the girl couldn't answer. He felt a lump tighten in his throat, but he tried to remain calm. "It's okay, Rita. We'll find a solution. I'll take you to the nearest police station. There they'll be able to help you find your parents." "Don't worry, everything will be fine," he said, trying to sound as comforting as possible, although his gaze often returned to her belly, trying to understand what could be happening. Meanwhile, far away, Monica anxiously awaited Matthias' return. She had left the television on the local news while she prepared dinner in the kitchen. It was then that she heard the news of an accident on the track that Matthias usually used to return home. At the same moment, her heart raced, and she dropped a glass on the floor, feeling a sudden bad feeling. "Mommy, what was that?" asked Aninha, running to the kitchen when she heard the noise. Monica looked at her daughter with a worried expression, the sound of the news echoing in her mind as she tried to calm down and think of what to do. She knew something wasn't right, and her concern for Matthias only grew. "It's nothing, honey. Mommy just dropped a glass." "Get the broom for me, dear," said Monica, trying to sound calm, while Aninha went to get the broom to help her mother pick up the broken glass. Taking advantage of the moment, Monica picked up the phone and tried to call her husband, but the call wouldn't go through. With each failed attempt, the nervousness intensified inside her, like a knot tightening her stomach. When Aninha came back with the broom, Monica started to clean up the broken glass, but the nervousness was written all over her face. "Mommy, where's Daddy? He should be here by now, right?" "It's almost 9 o'clock, asked Aninha, her innocent voice reflecting a growing curiosity. Monica took a deep breath, trying to hide her concern. "He's coming, my love. He's just taking a little longer today," she replied, but the restlessness in her voice was noticeable. Meanwhile, on the road through the dense forest, Matthias continued to drive carefully, trying to keep a conversation with Rita to calm her down. "Just a few more minutes and we'll get off this road, okay? We'll get to the city where I live and then we'll go to a police station to seek help," he said, trying to sound confident. Before Rita could answer, a groan of pain escaped her lips, and her hands immediately went to her belly. Matthias went into shock. "What's wrong, Rita? What's happening?" he asked, feeling panic rise up his spine. The little girl began to squirm in the seat, letting the Aninha doll fall from her trembling hands. "My belly, it hurts a lot, sir," Rita said with tears streaming down her face, visibly distressed. Matthias, desperate, stopped the car suddenly, determined to call Monica again. He thought that, as a woman, she would know better how to deal with the situation. However, when he picked up his cell phone, he realized that there was still no signal. "Damn it," he muttered, putting the device back in his pocket. Looking at Rita, who continued to writhe in pain, Matthias began to suspect the worst. Could she be having contractions? Oh my God. What do I do now? He thought, realizing that he wouldn't be able to control the situation alone. Determined to act quickly, he decided that the best option would be to take Rita to a hospital as soon as possible. Matthias knew he was almost off the dirt road and, without thinking twice, he decided to accelerate, but trying to stay calm so as not to lose control of the vehicle. Rita, change of plans. I'm going to take you to a hospital right now. Just hold on a little longer, honey, he said, trying to sound comforting, as he started the car again and stepped on the accelerator. The car drove along the dirt road, and Matthias' heart was beating faster as he became increasingly worried about the girl next to him, who seemed to be pregnant. The last few miles of the road were tense, with the dense, shadowy trees closing in around the car, and the sound of the tires on the uneven ground mixing with Rita's moans of pain, making the environment even more distressing. Finally, in the distance, he saw the flickering lights of the city. A wave of relief washed over his body, dissipating some of the panic he felt. We're almost there, Rita. The hospital is just ahead. Hold on tight, just a little longer, he said, trying to keep confidence in his voice, although the fear for the girl's condition continued to grow. Matthias drove quickly through the city streets towards the hospital, the emergency lights already visible in the distance. His heart beat like a drum in his chest as he accelerated even more, feeling the urgency of the situation. As soon as he reached the front of the hospital, he stopped the car abruptly and ran to the other side, where Rita was. He carefully picked her up, feeling her heart race with pain, and hesitated for a second when he noticed that the girl's belly was even more swollen. But, determined, he rushed through the automatic doors of the hospital. Please help me. She's in so much pain, he shouted, carrying Rita into the reception area. The automatic doors closed behind them with a heavy sound, and the murmur of surprise and shock from the people in the waiting room filled the air. All eyes turned to the girl in his arms, especially to her abnormally swollen belly. The faces of the staff and patients revealed a mixture of confusion and concern, while Matthias desperately looked for help, fear and uncertainty written all over his face. 3 health professionals, 2 nurses and a doctor, quickly approached Matthias, their expressions showing concern and tension. The doctor, her eyes fixed on the girl, asked urgently, "What happened? What is she feeling?" Meanwhile, the nurses, with careful gestures, took Rita from Matthias's arms and placed her on a stretcher. "I found her on the side of the road," Matthias explained, trying to remain calm, but the anxiety evident in his voice. She was alone and seemed disoriented. Suddenly, she started to feel intense pain. "I don't know what's happening to her." The nurses quickly took the girl to the emergency room, while Matthias was led to the reception desk to provide some information. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with a scrutinizing gaze and a firm posture, began a series of questions. "What is the girl's full name?
How old is she?
What is your relationship to her?" Matthias, still visibly nervous, answered hesitantly. "I don't know her full name. She told me her name is Rita. I found her alone on the road and was going to take her to the police station, but she suddenly started having severe pain." Matthias' uncertain answers only increased the atmosphere of suspicion around him. The people at the reception began to whisper among themselves, casting suspicious glances in his direction. He felt each glance like a knife, cutting his skin. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "I'm telling the truth. I don't know the girl. Do you think I did something to her?" he asked, trying to hide his nervousness behind an expression of indignation. The receptionist, remaining calm, answered, "I'm not judging you. I'm just looking out for the girl's safety and doing my job." "Are you sure you don't know her?" she insisted, her voice neutral, but her eyes still attentive to Matthias' every reaction. Meanwhile, in the emergency room, Rita continued to writhe in pain on the stretcher, her face sweaty and pale. The doctor, quickly examining the girl, tried to identify the cause of the problem. The situation seemed to be getting worse by the second, and the doctor noticed a strange swelling on Rita's belly. With a serious look, she discreetly leaned over to one of the nurses and whispered, "Call the police immediately. Don't let the man who brought the girl leave here until they arrive." The nurse nodded quickly and left the room, while the doctor continued to prepare for the emergency care. In the reception area, the tension only increased. Matthias, still answering questions, felt the growing weight of suspicions on him. He looked at the door that led to the treatment area, worried about the girl's condition, but he began to feel that something was very wrong. A feeling of uneasiness took over Matthias. His eyes scanned the surroundings again, noticing the intensity of the stares and the whispers that spread like wildfire. He felt sweat drip down his forehead, mixing with the panic that was beginning to bubble in his chest. Something in that hospital seemed to be moving against him, and each second seemed to drag on in a silence filled with unspoken accusations. 2 nurses and a doctor quickly arrived at Matthias's house, their tense expressions revealing the urgency of the situation. The doctor, in a serious tone, asked what had happened, while the nurses gently removed Rita from Matthias's arms and placed her on a stretcher. Matthias, visibly agitated, explained, "I found her alone on the side of the road. She seemed lost, and suddenly she started to feel a lot of pain. I don't know what's happening." The desperation was evident in Matthias's voice. The nurses took the girl to an emergency room, while Matthias was led to the reception desk to answer a few questions. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with a watchful gaze, began to question, "What is the girl's full name?
How old is she?
And what is your relationship to her?" Matthias, his voice trembling, tried to answer. "I don't know her full name. She said her name was Rita. I found her alone on the road and was going to take her to the police station, but she started to feel severe pain." His hesitant answer only fueled the suspicions of the receptionist and others present who had heard the conversation. The receptionist, maintaining a professional tone, insisted, "Didn't you know the girl before you found her?" Meanwhile, in the waiting room, the doctor was urgently examining Rita. Realizing the gravity of the situation and the abnormal swelling in the girl's belly, the doctor leaned over discreetly and whispered to one of the nurses, "Call the police in secret. Don't let the man who brought the girl out until they arrive." The nurse nodded and quickly left, leaving the doctor and the equipment with Rita. The tension in the reception area increased as Matthias, still being questioned, felt the weight of suspicion on him. Looking anxiously at the doors that led to the treatment area, he began to realize that something was very wrong. Matthias's cell phone vibrated, and when he looked at the screen, he saw that it was a call from Monica. He sighed deeply, about to answer, when 2 police officers approached quickly. Their serious looks indicated that they were not there for a friendly conversation. "Sir, we need you to come with us to a room for some questions," one of the officers said firmly. Matthias, holding the cell phone, tried to remain calm. "I need to take this call. It's my wife. Just a minute, please." The taller officer, with an impassive expression, replied, "Excuse me, sir. Put your cell phone down and come with us." Reluctantly, Matthias followed the officers down a narrow hallway, away from the reception and common areas of the hospital, to a small windowless room. As he entered, he felt the gravity of the situation increase. "Sir, we need to clarify what happened," began the officer who had spoken earlier. "You brought a pregnant girl to the hospital, and we need to understand how this happened. Who is this girl?" Matthias' eyes widened, the shock evident on his face. "What? No, you're misunderstanding. I found her on the road, alone and in pain. I don't know where she came from. I just tried to help. I didn't know she was pregnant." The second police officer, crossing his arms and looking suspiciously, asked, "The story seems strange. How did you find a girl in this state in the middle of nowhere, on a road where almost no one passes, except those who want to cause trouble?" Desperately, Matthias tried to explain, "I'm a family man. I have a little daughter. I would never hurt anyone. I just wanted to help, I swear." His voice was almost breaking, and the desperation was palpable. Meanwhile, at home, Monica hung up the phone, frustrated that Matthias hadn't answered. A bad feeling took over her again, but she quickly remembered the tracking app they had installed on their cell phones for emergencies. She opened the app and saw that Matthias's location was at the hospital. Her heart sank when she saw this information. "Aninha, we need to go find Daddy now," exclaimed Monica, pulling her daughter by the hand. Monica ran out of the house and hurried to the hospital. When she arrived, she saw Matthias's car parked in front and ran even faster into the building. At the reception, she anxiously looked for any sign of her husband. "Please, is my husband here? His car is outside. His name is Matthias," Monica asked the receptionist, almost breathless. The receptionist hesitated, but before she could answer, a ninja, holding her mother's hand tightly, pointed to a room in the back and said, "Mom, Daddy is over there with those men." Monica, with a worried look, headed to the indicated room, fearing what she might find. Monica, visibly disturbed, held her daughter's hand and watched through the half-open door, where she saw Matthias being questioned by 2 police officers. Without hesitation, she ran towards the room, with a ninja at her side. The receptionist, realizing what was happening, tried to stop her. "Sorry, ma'am. This is a restricted area. You can't come in here," she said, trying to block the entrance. But Monica was determined and, with her heart racing, she pushed the door hard, interrupting the tense conversation between Matthias and the police officers. "What's going on here? Why are you questioning my husband?" Monica asked, her voice firm but full of anguish. The police officers looked at each other in surprise at the interruption. Matthias raised his head, his eyes meeting Monica's. The expression on his face was a mix of despair and fear, as the situation seemed to change with every moment. He tried to explain himself to Monica, his words coming out rushed and confused. "I found a girl on the road, alone and lost. She was in a lot of pain, so I brought her to the hospital. The police think she's pregnant." Monica was still trying to process the information, alternating her gaze between the police and Matthias, trying to understand the gravity of the situation. Before she could continue the conversation, the door to the room was opened abruptly, and the doctor, who was treating Rita, came in with a worried expression. "Sorry for the interruption, but Rita has been taken to the operating room," the doctor announced. Everyone in the room stood still for a moment, the shock evident on their faces. Matthias, feeling his heart tighten and fearing the worst, murmured, She's going to give birth." But the doctor quickly clarified the situation. "Rita is not pregnant, and there are no signs of any pregnancy-related problems. She suffers from a serious intestinal problem that prevents proper evacuation. We need to perform an urgent intestinal cleanse to relieve the pressure and avoid complications." Matthias and Monica were stunned, listening to the doctor's explanation. The doctor then took a small card from Rita's pocket and handed it to the police officers. "I found this card in her pocket. It's from a hardware store. Maybe someone there knows the girl. I'm not sure if they still answer at this time, but it looks like a cell phone number. It's worth a try," the doctor suggested. One of the police officers took the card and made the call. On the other end of the line, Rita's father, the owner of the small store, answered urgently. He explained that his daughter had a habit of sleepwalking and that he and his wife had been looking for her since early morning. The father also mentioned that they were aware of the health problem Rita was facing and that they were looking for appropriate treatment. Upon learning that their daughter was about to undergo surgery, he and his wife quickly went to the hospital. Meanwhile, the police officers, realizing that Matthias had really done nothing to the girl, apologized for the situation. The police, as well as the doctor, decided to release Matthias and his family after clarification. However, the delivery man chose to stay at the hospital, feeling that he could not leave without knowing how the little girl he had rescued was doing. A short time later, Rita's parents arrived at the hospital, visibly distressed, but deeply grateful to see Matthias. Rita's father went to him, firmly extending his hand. "You saved my daughter. I don't know how to thank you. If someone else with bad intentions had found my little girl on the road, I don't even want to imagine what could have happened." Monica, who until then had been tense and apprehensive, felt a growing pride when she saw the gratitude in Rita's parents' eyes. A ninja, holding her mother's hand, also showed how proud she was of her father. Rita's surgery was a success and, a few hours later, she was already resting in a hospital room. Matthias, before leaving, realized that he could not leave without seeing the girl again. Then he went to the car and picked up a ninja's toy, the same doll that had been delivered to Rita a few hours earlier. Would you mind if I gave this doll to Rita? He asked his daughter. Aninha, always generous, smiled and nodded. Of course not, Daddy. I think she'll like it. With the gift in hand, Matthias, Monica, and Aninha walked together to Rita's room. When they entered, the girl smiled when she saw the delivery man. Thank you for everything, Rita said, her voice still weak, but full of gratitude. Matthias smiled back and replied, You're welcome, dear. I brought you something. He handed her the doll. This is a gift from Aninha. Rita took the toy with affection and looked at Aninha. Thank you. I think we're going to be good friends. Aninha smiled and held Rita's hand. We'll definitely be the best of friends. Rita's parents were touched by the gesture and promised to keep in touch. Over time, the two families grew closer and closer, and Rita and Aninha became inseparable. Thanks to proper treatment and the support of those around them, Rita's health problem never returned. That night, which began with so much uncertainty and fear, ended with new bonds of friendship and hope, showing how unpredictable, but also wonderful, destiny can be. And if you liked this story, I'm sure the next video that's appearing on your screen will also move you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like it, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. A big kiss, and until the next exciting story.